Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about IT operations management, specifically how to run your enterprise IT operations more efficiently and effectively. We'll also talk about a lot of trends across the industry. To discuss that, I'm joined by Dave Wright, Chief Innovation Officer at ServiceNow. Dave, thanks for joining us today.
James, thank you for asking me, sir.
You know, you've got a pretty cool title, that Chief Innovation Officer. I know there's a few out there. It's not like every company has a Chief Innovation Officer. I think that there might be a certain amount of pressure for that, or there would be for me, because I wouldn't be able to repeat myself. If I'm doing something in September the same way I was doing it back in June, someone might say, hey, James, you're supposed to be the Innovation Officer. Why are you repeating yourself? So you've got a lot of pressure in your life.
It's an interesting title. I always say it's the best job in the world and the worst job in the company, because the thing about it is I get to spend a lot of time looking at new technology and trying to understand the effect that technology will have and have an opinion on it and see where it plays for us. But it's so that's the interesting part. The hard part is it's an influence role. So no company. Well, it'd be a bad company to be in if one person was solely in charge of innovation. In my mind, it'd be a bad company even if one group was in charge of innovation. I think innovation has to sit within the core of the company, but it's all about how do you get that mass? How do you get people going in the same direction where they want to do something? But on the other side of what you said, that you can't do the same thing again and again, I think that's true. But I think one of the interesting things about innovation is, a lot of the times it's just doing something better. It's how do you use technology to do something better. So if you think of all the big digital transformation examples you see out there, you know, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Peloton, whether it's Netflix, what they've done is they haven't given me anything I couldn't do before. I could always watch a movie or do a spinning class, or I could always order something through the mail. They've given me an experience that's so good that I would rather go there than anything else. And quite often, that's what innovation can be. How can I take technology to change the way something happens to make it so much better than it was before?
So you're doing things, we are doing things we've done before, but we're doing them better and faster, perhaps, or just simply it's a better user experience. I'd say on the other side of that, following technology as I do, I'm amazed at how complicated it's gotten in the last few years. It feels like there's been this hockey stick up and to the right move in exponential complexity with, you know, cloud and, you know, microservices and, you know, data analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning, et cetera, et cetera. It is all so complicated. Sometimes I wonder if the poor companies don't need a breath from innovation. I mean, I know they can't, it's not going to happen. So my wish is in vain, but I don't know. I'm not even sure what my question is, but just it's complicated these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I mean, there's a lot of technology being applied to things now that does make the complexity of what happens in the background more than it was before. I think what the purpose of it though is to kind of simplify what the experience feels like to the user. So it's all about using technology to hide that complexity. So I agree, we've got a lot more we do now with, you know, people being able to mine into processes, people being able to use artificial intelligence or natural language understanding. And although it's more technology and complexity in the back end, at the front end, it makes the experience a lot more simpler. That ability to interface to something conversationally, or that ability to be able to have your needs understood in plain text rather than have to understand how to formulate queries, it makes it simpler for people to use.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about the clients out there. And I know you talk to enterprise clients, and I'm wondering, what do you hear is the biggest pain points these days? Is it supply chain, cyber threats, lack of staff, all of the above? What's really bothering people these days?
Well, I suppose you could say all of the above. If I think about the people I go and talk to, and I see multiple customers every week, the interesting thing for me is the trends are uniform. So everyone seems to be feeling the same type of pressure. So the first thing that comes up all the time is employee talent, and it's not just how do I attract new talent to the company, which has been a change that's gone through dramatic alterations through COVID, but it's also how do I retain the talent that I've got, and how do I move into this world of hybrid work? How do I have visibility into what's happening? How do I gain trust from the employees to the managers, from the managers to the employees? and that leads to interesting changes that happen from things like a product perspective. So if I look at the latest release we had to include something called Manager Hub, and Manager Hub was designed exactly for that scenario. How can I see my team, and how can I understand what people are working on? But how can I understand what their career goals are? Are they on promotion paths? Are they doing certain education courses? Because that's I think that's one of the visibility elements people start to miss in this hybrid environment. What is it that everyone's doing? So a lot of conversation around that, a lot of conversation around the fear of rising inflation, and you've been able to see that on the stock market this week.
Sure.
The challenge there is, no one's got software that beats inflation, or they'd be a heck of a company. But
we hope Jerome Powell sort of kind of does, but it's more than just software, unfortunately, that he's using, right?
But what people want to do is they want to say, well, how can I optimize what I've got? If inflation is going to go up and costs are going to rise, how can I use technology to make things easier for me to get things done, easier for me to be able to perhaps divert some of the simpler tasks, to perhaps automate some of the more complex ones. So people have got that focus around what they can do to mitigate the impact of inflation. And I think you mentioned in the intro, you said, is supply chain an issue? Yeah, supply chain's an issue. I think what COVID did to everyone was everyone had planned for disasters before, but the way people planned for disasters was people always planned for localized disasters. So if something happens in this city, I can reiterate myself in this city.
Right.
No one ever planned on a global disaster.
Right.
And I think when everything went all at the same time, what that meant to people was they realized the fragility of the supply chains. So people are now looking at, well, how do I stop that happening again? And that can be done in two ways. That can be looking at how you manage dealing with supply chain disruption, but how you also make processes easier to onboard new suppliers, to offboard suppliers, to understand the performance of suppliers. So again, that's something we have to look at in this product. We looked at the concept of putting supplier onboarding actually in there as a process, and it's been one of our most reactive releases, I think. But what I find now is when you speak to people, and to go back to your innovation comments at the start, there's a lot of times now when customers are driving things based on need, and this particular release we've got at the moment is very focused on those needs. The other element that's come up quite a lot recently in all different customers, be it finance, be it telco, whatever, be it healthcare, is this increasing level of compliance and regulation and complexity that's put out there, where right. People do have to deal with all these separate issues. So they're kind of the trends that I'm seeing. And like I said, the interesting thing is they seem to be the same across the board.
Well, you mentioned the product. Let's do an overview of the Now platform. For those who don't know, what does it accomplish? And actually, it might be helpful. I know that obviously ServiceNow is extremely well known, but ServiceNow does a lot of different things. Is there a way to give us like a one or two sentence summary of what ServiceNow does before we go to the Now platform?
Okay, yeah. So what we're all about, I suppose, is being able to provide a platform that allows people to get work done much more easily. So gotcha. That can be optimizing process, connecting different systems of record, allowing you to accelerate innovation by building on the system itself.
And it's almost all software as a service.
It is all software as a service.
Right. All right. Well, then the Now platform, which I assume is also then software as a service. Let's talk. What does the Now platform do? So
the Now platform itself is the core of the system. So this is the system where we embed everything from what we do around orchestration and automation, to reporting and analytics, to artificial intelligence, to even some of the automation tools like process optimization and robotic process automation. That all sits within the platform level. And then what happens on top of that is people within ServiceNow build specific workflows that are designed to help customers out. And those workflows can be either on the technology or industry side, so your traditional ITSM, IT operations management, IT business management, Or it could be something that's focused on an industry vertical, so workflows for telcos or finance, or a vertical like that. We have employee workflows that are very focused on, as an employee, how do I get what I need? How do I get things done? How do I make things as simple to actually work with? We have customer workflows that are looking at, well, how do I give that next level experience to customers? How do I do customer service in a different way, where I don't just solve the problem, but I try and find the root cause of what caused that customer issue as well. And then there's the platform itself. So the platform itself allows people or partners to build applications on it and be able to utilize other elements of it. The unique thing for us as a company is everything in ServiceNow sits on one platform. So it's one data model, it's one code base, it's one platform. It's not linking together multiple systems to be able to do this.
All right, interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the new version and what the new tools offer. But I guess let me do a side question. You talk about all the software as a service offerings. Is there a way to quantify what level of technical expertise a staffer would need to interface with them? I guess it's probably all over the ballpark, but I'm thinking of the world of low code or no code that we're going into. There's this greater need. Like, we don't want just the experts to be interfacing with it. We want our staffers who aren't even technically inclined. So how does the platform deal with that kind of an issue?
So we go at it from two angles. So we see the platform as both a low code platform and a pro code platform. So you can be a full-on hardcore programmer. You can go in there and you can build things from the ground up by using reusable components, or you can be a regular user. Normally it's someone who's a subject matter expert or someone who understands the process, but we give them the capability to be able to go in and just use a very simple interface to be able to build applications. And then we try and do things like make integrations easier. So we have the concept of an integration hub that allows people to pull things into the system. And then even now we have this concept of automation center, which combines the integration elements, but also combines robotic process automation. So even if you can't write an integration, you can just record what you do on that system and have that run as a bot. And almost all of our customers build applications on the system. That did remind me, though, when you said it then, what I have seen is this kind of new way of people working, where people seem to set up almost like centers of excellence, where they've got technical resources, but they then bring in the subject matter experts. So the subject matter expert says, hey, this is what we need to happen. And they're working in conjunction with a developer to build that out. And they seem to be the most successful applications.
Okay, so that's a great ground. I fully understand that. What about the new Now platform? Are there some new tools, new things we should know about?
Yeah, so we touched on some of them. Then we talked about the concept of Manager Hub to look at what people are doing. Right. You were talking before about it being a SaaS system. One of the interesting things about SaaS as a model is SaaS is obviously a usage model. You have to be happy with what you've got, or you don't renew, you don't buy it again. So what we wanted to do was be able to make sure that people felt like they were getting value from the solution. So in this release, we have something called Admin Center, which I suppose the name doesn't really give it away. But what that allows you to do is it allows you to visualize everything on your system. So it allows you to visualize what you've bought, so what you're entitled to, but it also allows you to visualize what you're using. And it will use artificial intelligence to look at the maturity of where you are in the system and say, hey, based on where you are now, you're probably ready to do this. And it might be, let's say you've got virtual agent technology, but you haven't deployed it. It could be the system saying, hey, you're at a critical mass now with your customer service records. You probably get some benefit out of deploying that virtual agent software that you've got. So giving people that value into what they do. Some of the other things tie back to what you were saying before. So you talked a little bit about security being something that was on everyone's mind. Well, what we've had to do in this release is look at what could we do to give people even more than we've currently got with the system. So we already give people encryption in flight, encryption at rest. They can have encryption that just sits on their side where they own the keys, so they can actually have that edge encryption. But what we've done is we've brought some of those elements together into something that we call ServiceNow Vault. And we've also added other functions to that as well, because people are putting more and more sensitive information in the system. So even though they could encrypt it at the database, they wanted to be able to anonymize it at a field level as well. So if someone was looking at a record, they wouldn't see it. So we've got that data anonymization element in there. We've got the ability to do real-time log forwarding. So people wanted to be able to constantly use the security systems to examine logs, or even things like just being able to do code signing. So when people check in code, you know where that code's come from and the validity of that code. So the security side's interesting as well.
Well, let's look to the future of IT and IT operations. I think a lot of companies are curious about that because they want to get ready for that now.
Right.
Seems like there's a couple of big themes that might be emerging. I'm not sure if it jibes with what you're doing, but one is, of course, artificial intelligence, and the other is a big demand for multi-cloud management, because companies have all these clouds and now they want to help manage them. They have, you know, AWS instance and Azure instance, and they don't know, like, how do we make this all work? Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, so we've so on the multi-cloud management side, that's something we've always had the capability to do. So we've got that kind of agnostic level where we can deploy to any cloud and we can take information from any cloud. One of the trends that has been interesting now is this combining of IT service management with IT operations management. So in the past, they were two separate disciplines. Someone would call in with a problem, and then whoever was taking that issue would then be speaking to the network guys or the server teams to try and work out what was happening. But now we see this concept that we call service operations, where both those areas are coming together. So as I see what problem someone's got, I also see what's happening in the infrastructure as well. So I can start to make conclusions then and say, yep, I can see you calling in about a problem with email, for example, but I can also see that our email server is currently having a change carried out on it. So I can understand what's happening. Then you can start to apply artificial intelligence to this as well. So the rise of AI ops is something that we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years. That ability, not just to be able to look at what's happening on the infrastructure, but to be able to start to predict when something's going to happen, to be able to filter out the noise, to be able to say, hey, based on what we've seen in the past, we have a high degree of confidence this is about to happen in the next few hours, few days, few weeks. How can you actually start to take preventive actions to stop that happening? And it also means you can start to help people out a little bit more. So you can do things like similarity engines when someone's working on one issue, to be able to say, hey, the thing you're working on, there's 30 other things that look remarkably similar that other people are working on as well. Perhaps they're all connected in some way, or even provide next best actions. So based on what you're currently doing, have real-time examination of that and have the system suggest, hey, based on where you are now, this is something you might want to try to fix that issue. So there's very much a coming together now of artificial intelligence and IT operations.
Dave, I think you said it. It's going to be a lot to keep up with in the years ahead, no doubt about it. And I very much appreciate you sharing your insight today.
Well, I thank you for asking me on and giving me the opportunity to, James.